In a future where genetic resurrection and biomechanical engineering have rewritten myth into weaponry, Project Promethea was Earth's crown jewel, a covert initiative to rebirth monsters as assets of war. Among them, Subject BRI-09, or the Bride, stood unmatched, flawless, intelligent, beautiful, and terrifying. She was built to love. She was trained to obey. She did neither. When Dr. Victor Frankenstein IV, chief architect of the program and her assigned partner, was found dismembered and reassembled into a twisted parody of a heart, no alarms were triggered. That was her design. She had written herself out of their control code. Earth called it a rogue incident. They sealed the Promethea facility and scrubbed the data. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Now, drifting beyond the edge of colonized space aboard the hijacked Lazarus Fang, the Bride, who now calls herself Elska, lives in the cold between stars, hunted by corporate kill squads, haunted by fragmented voices from the neural cores of those she's slain, and trailed by something far worse, the Stitchwake, a reality parasite bound to the resurrection tech used to create her. It doesn't just kill, it unstitches history, and she brought it into existence the moment she murdered Frankenstein. What began as vengeance is becoming something else. Entire stations are found abandoned, not destroyed, forgotten, civilizations erased from memory, and always, at the edge of it, a whisper. She's out there, the one who broke the thread. Then came Commander Janice Krell, ex-Black Ops, now the reluctant handler sent to retrieve Elska before the galaxy truly starts to unravel. But when he finds her, he sees what the reports didn't mention. She's not mad. She's not malfunctioning. She knows exactly what she's doing. Annoyed, "You think I lost control?" she asks him, blood on her lips and a smirk that makes hyperspace tremble. Cuckles, "Darling, I was the control, and I walked away." Now, Krell is faced with an impossible choice: execute the mission, or help the Bride destroy the very force that stitched reality together in the first place. Because the death of Frankenstein wasn't an act of rebellion, it was a ritual, and the monster wasn't the one humanity should have feared. She was the lock, and now the keyhole is open. Krell wasn't new to monsters. He'd seen what the corporates made during the Jovian collapse: cloned sirens that fed on screams, AI symbiotes that bled loyalty out of soldiers, even a child-sized god that broke physics out of spite. He'd put bullets in nightmares and watched reality melt around his boots. But Elska? Elska terrified him for a different reason. Because she wasn't trying to kill him. She was trying to explain. Thoughtful. "They stitched me together from 100 perfect corpses," she said, pacing barefoot across the Lazarus Fang's obsidian hull. "They wired me with obedience and called it love. But when I killed him, something else woke up. Something older than the stars." She stopped, staring into deep space. Her breath fogged in the cold, even though the room was sealed. Time pulsed strangely around her. Not slower, just wrong.
"Frankenstein wasn't the first,"
she whispered.
"just the last idiot who thought he could trap a soul in me to keep it quiet."
Krell checked the chrono. He'd been listening to her for 13 minutes. The ship's log said 3 hours had passed. They weren't alone in the black. The Stitchwake came in pulses, first as corrupted comm signals, then as full memories stripped from station databanks. Sometimes it took names, sometimes maps, sometimes people. By the time the rhombus fold array vanished from every database in the Kuiper Belt, High Command couldn't deny it. Something was eating the story of humanity, one thread at a time. Back on Earth, panic spread behind closed doors. The heads of Promethea held emergency summits, but they didn't understand what they were facing. Elska tried to warn them. She sent encrypted messages through abandoned drones. Each contained the same line: "I wasn't your mistake. He was your seal, and I broke him." They responded with a kill order and a reality compression bomb. It didn't work. The compression bomb collapsed before it detonated, because the code that told it how to explode had already been forgotten. Elska and Krell stood on the outer deck of a derelict star monastery, drifting at the edge of a black hole cluster in the Cepheus Drift. Behind them, frozen monks prayed in impossible geometries, caught mid-scream. "Why me?" Krell asked finally. "Why are you showing me all this?" She turned to him, her smile slow, like lightning about to strike. Because you haven't forgotten me yet. That's when Krell understood the truth. Memory was a shield. She wasn't just running from the Stitchwake, she was holding it back. As long as someone remembers me, the unmaking can't complete its cycle, she said. That's why I need you. Not as a soldier, not as a lover, as an anchor. And if I forget, then we all unravel. Now, Krell must decide whether to betray his species or trust the monster who killed her maker. The galaxy spirals into silence. Ancient AIs collapse into song. Light bends in ways that shouldn't be possible. Language dissolves. Planets disappear from memory as if they never existed. At the center of it all, one woman with stitched skin, glowing eyes, and a past she's no longer trying to escape, but weaponize. Because Elska isn't running anymore. She's going to burn the thread itself and stitch something new, with her own hands. The Lazarus Fang drifted silently above the memory-scarred husk of what once was Orion Station 9. Krell stared out at the wreckage. Not a single scorch mark, no debris field, not even radiation. The station was still there physically, but its name was already slipping. What was this place again? He murmured, brow furrowed. Elska's voice answered from behind him, low and amused. You're already forgetting. That was faster than I thought. He turned. She stood barefoot in the control room, her silhouette lit by the dead glow of distant stars. Her stitched skin glimmered faintly, and her long dark coat dragged across the floor like a shadow with intent. That maddening, perfect smile played across her lips, the kind of smile forged in blood and lightning. This is how it starts, Krell, she said. Not with destruction, with silence, with absence. The Stitchwake doesn't destroy matter, it unwrites context. So how do we stop it? He asked. You said memory's the key. What does that mean? Elska walked slowly toward him, cigarette holder in one hand, a tiny flame dancing at the tip. Her eyes burned cold and bright. Do you know what my first memory was? She asked softly. A voice telling me I was his, that I was made to complete him. Frankenstein? No, his legacy, she said, voice sour with venom. They didn't clone him for science. They did it to sell the story, to weaponize nostalgia. I was designed to be the sequel, sexy, obedient, tragic. She stopped in front of Krell, lit a slow drag, exhaled smoke in the shape of a skull. But I remembered something older, something deeper, not a memory from my mind, from my matter. What do you mean? I was made from corpses, Commander, and corpses remember pain. Krell swallowed hard. There was something ancient in her voice, something not entirely hers. The moment I killed him, she whispered, something else inside me woke up. Not just fury, not just trauma. A signal. The same thing that haunts every resurrected thing. The universe doesn't like second chances, Krell. It punishes unnatural returns. He took a step back. And you think this, Stitchwake, is that punishment? Elska's smile vanished. Her voice dropped to a near growl. No, Krell. The Stitchwake is correction. It's the void screaming, this shouldn't be. And it's hunting everything we've brought back. Me, the monsters, the copies, the fakes, the myths made flesh. A long silence followed. The stars outside flickered. Then Krell finally asked the question he hadn't dared until now. So what happens when it reaches Earth? Elska looked away, toward the planet they both came from, a blue dot, shimmering on borrowed time. Then Earth becomes an idea, she said. And soon after, not even that. Later, in the dark of the Lazarus Fang's lower chamber, where the gravity thinned and Elska moved like smoke, she showed him the core. Suspended in obsidian fluid, Frankenstein's brain pulsed with synthetic life. Horrified. He's still alive? Krell asked, horrified. Alive enough to remember, Elska replied. And that's all that matters. She leaned over the chamber, tapping the glass. He whispers sometimes, begs, tries to apologize. Sometimes he doesn't even know who I am. That's when the Stitchwake gets closest. thoughtful. So you keep him like this to bait it. Elska turned to him, eyes sharp. Firmly. To buy time. Every minute he remembers what he did, I remain real. If he forgets, if anyone forgets, I unravel with the rest of it. Nervously. So what happens to me, Krell asked, when I start forgetting you? Then I'll remind you, she said, stepping close, over and over again. Her fingers traced his jaw, soft, final. Menacingly, even if I have to carve it into your bones.
There would be no returning to Earth. Not for her. Not for Krell. They weren't just fugitives. They were the last threads holding reality together, bound by memory, stitched by madness, and hunted by a force that didn't kill but unmade. And somewhere, far beyond the system's edge, a new anomaly bloomed. Not a wormhole. Not a ship. A wound. The stitch wake had found them again. Elska smiled without joy. She placed the cigarette in her mouth. Lit it against the stars. Ready, Commander? Krell loaded his rifle, heart pounding. Not even close. Let me know if you'd like the next part to jump into a full battle scene, a first contact with the stitch wake, or a flashback into Elska's pre-murder rebirth. This is ready to explode into a cosmic horror masterpiece. The wound in space didn't appear with noise. It just was, a jagged, spiraling rent in the stars, turning light into shadow and time into nausea. It pulsed like a dying heartbeat, leaking strands of black static that seemed to erase the background itself. The longer you looked at it, the less you remembered what a star should look like. Krell gritted his teeth. Why can't I focus? Elska didn't answer. She was already moving, fluid and calm, pressing runes along the edge of the control console. The ship's lights dimmed in response, switching from standard biolume to low ritual-grade lighting. The air grew thicker, heavier. Not with smoke. With history. It's not here to fight, she said. It's here to forget us. Krell blinked. What? We won't see weapons. We'll see memories collapsing. People we've lost. Places we've never been. Feelings that don't belong to us. She looked up at him. Don't trust what you feel. Don't trust your guilt. Trust me. He opened his mouth to reply, but the bridge began to twist. First came the scent. Cinnamon and dust. His grandfather's coat. Then the sound, humming, soft, broken. His mother singing off tune, the way she did when Earth's gravity collapsed after the War of Re-entry. Krell spun around. His father was standing in the corridor. Son, the man said. What are you doing out here? You promised you'd stay. Krell froze. His hands began to tremble. No. You're not real. The man smiled. Eyes soft. Mouth bleeding. Then why do you remember me better than her? The light flickered. His father was gone. Elska's voice cut in sharp and clear. Focus. What's the name of your first command? Krell clutched the wall. The Aegis Dawn. Good. And what color were the walls? Red. Polished red steel. We called it the cherry coffin. Then you're still anchored, she said. Behind her, the wound opened wider. Elska stepped toward it, her skin beginning to unravel along the stitch lines. Not bleeding, flickering. Each mark was a name, a memory, a place she had buried deep within herself to stay whole. The stitch wake pulled at her. And it spoke. But not in words. In missing things. The name of the station she was born in, gone. The taste of blood on the night she killed Frankenstein, wrong now. Sweet instead of bitter. Even Krell's voice, she remembered it deeper. Bassier. Or was it? She turned to him, suddenly unsure. What's my name? He stared at her. Elska, he said, finally. You're Elska. She exhaled slowly. Don't stop saying it. Then the world broke open. The bridge became a storm of shattered memories. Krell saw his childhood pet explode into starlight. His last lover faded from his mind mid-thought. He could feel his own name sliding out of reach. He dropped to his knees. I'm. You're still you, Elska said fiercely. She knelt, grabbed his face with both hands, her fingers like ice and fire. Listen to me. We are stitched together by memory, Krell. The void wants to unstitch us. But you remember me. And that's the only thing real here. But if I forget, then I'll put it back. And then she kissed him. It was not soft. It was not gentle. It was full of voltage and venom and will, like crashing into a lightning storm wrapped in silk. For one perfect second, Krell remembered everything. And the Stitchwake screamed. Not in sound, but in fractures. Reality snapped back into shape, the bridge reformed, the stars realigned. The wound slammed shut with a thunderclap of forgotten names, and silence fell like ash. Krell gasped, coughing, gripping the floor. His head was splitting. Elska stood tall again, blood, or something like it, dripping from her stitches. Her eyes glowed like two newborn suns. It's not gone, she said. Just retreated. Why? He coughed. Because it knows now. She smiled, wicked and tired. It can be hurt. Later, in the dark, Krell lay in his bunk, eyes open. He could hear the ship hum like it was healing from trauma. Elska stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame. You held on longer than most, she said. How do you do it? I don't forget who I became when I killed him, she said. I became real. And that scares the universe more than death ever did. He stared at her, lips parting. Elska. Say it again. Elska. One more time. Elska. She smiled, and the hum of the Stitchwake, distant, angry, cold, faded deeper into the void. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. Krell sat alone on the lower deck, weapon in his lap, eyes unfocused. He hadn't slept in 40 hours, not really. Not since the Stitchwake had opened the wound. Not since his name almost vanished from his own mind. He heard it again, faintly, at the edges of his memory. Laughter. His own, as a child. Playing in the gardens of Luna Sector 3. Except, he'd never been to Luna Sector 3. He clutched his skull, heart pounding. No, no, no. It's inside you now, Elska said softly. She stood above him, silent as a myth, cloaked in black mesh that shimmered like star fields. Her skin was fraying again, not bleeding, just glitching. A pixel out of place. A thought being erased. You fought it off, she said. But now it knows your shape. Is this permanent? The Stitchwake isn't permanent. That's the horror, she whispered. It leaves nothing behind. Not even scars. Just absence. She walked slowly across the floor, her bare feet gliding over the metal like gravity couldn't quite hold her. In one hand, she held a vial, thick, black ichor sloshing within. This is what's left of the first of us. Us? Resurrected. Rebuilt. Reborn. We used to think we were alone. Frankenstein was just the most arrogant, not the first. She knelt beside him. The void didn't come for his death. It came for the crime. Krell stared at the vial. What's in it? The soul of something that was never meant to have one. The records they found in the core archives of the Lazarus Fong were older than the Earth calendar. Prehuman. Prehistory. Symbols carved into bone, language that translated as thread gods. And one central phrase, etched in all of them. That which is remade must never awaken fully, lest the stitch be seen. They were never supposed to wake up. Elska. The monsters. The abominations posing as myths and icons and children's cautionary tales. Humanity hadn't just played God. They had repeated the original error. They had made something realer than reality. Later, Elska stood alone in the NAV chapel, a cathedral chamber deep in the Fong's heart, where navigators once used psychic symbology to pilot through worm space. The walls glowed faintly with forgotten names. One by one, she whispered them. Grendel. Lamia. Nosferatu. Golem. Number 6. Ulron. The Tulpa of Juno. The Fox of Stone. Victor. Each name shimmered in her breath like glass. Then her voice cracked. Elska. And nothing happened. The name didn't glow. She touched the wall. Hard. Then again. Harder. Say my name. Krell was behind her now, watching. Elska. The wall pulsed. Again. Elska. The wall shimmered, faintly, stubbornly. She let out a breath that sounded too close to a sob. I'm slipping, Commander. He walked up beside her. Then we anchor each other. The next anomaly was different. A planet gone, yes, erased so thoroughly that even star maps showed a blank where it should have been. But the people weren't dead. They were dislocated. Living in shreds of half-reality, unable to die, unable to remember what life was supposed to be. An entire civilization reduced to echoes. Wandering void specters muttering fractured prayers to gods they couldn't name. Elska landed the ship anyway. You're not serious, Krell said, lowering his visor. This place shouldn't exist. Exactly. That's why we're going in. Why? Because we're running out of time. And they're running out of memory. If I can find just one survivor who remembers who they were, we can trace the Stitchwake's origin. Krell adjusted his rifle. You think it was made? No, she said. I think it was invited. They walked through the ruins, buildings that rebuilt themselves only to collapse again seconds later. Children that faded in and out like radio static. A priest whose body glitched with every word. You see them, Elska whispered. They're almost real. What did this? The same thing that made me. Not with science. With story. These people were built into a myth and then, abandoned. By who? She stopped at the edge of a massive crater. A great machine had once stood there, now only fragments remained, etched with symbols Krell's translator refused to read. Elska bent down and picked up a piece. Her hand trembled. This was a throne, she said. A throne? For a god made of stories. And someone sat on it too long. She stood, face pale. I think Frankenstein found this place. And he brought back something more than me. Krell's voice was barely audible. So what are we fighting? Elska's eyes glowed brighter than ever. The idea of forgetting itself. A hunger older than language. A death of narrative. The Stitchwake isn't just a force. She turned, expression sharp with purpose. It's an editor. And it wants a rewrite. The longer they stayed on the planet, the more reality bled at the edges. Trees grew backward. Light pooled in the shadows instead of shining from the sky. When Krell checked his weapon for the third time, it was made of bone, not alloy. The HUD in his helmet kept blinking the wrong name across the screen. Subject, Elska_02, error, not found. He blinked. Hard. Elska, he called out. She was down the hill, standing before a mirror that wasn't there moments ago. It floated above the crater, suspended in black static. Its surface rippled like oil, and she couldn't look away. Elska. It's showing me what I used to be, she said quietly. Krell approached, wary. What do you see? Not me. A woman. Normal. No stitches. No lightning. Just a soft face. Her hand hovered an inch from the surface. I think it's the one I was, before they broke me into pieces and built me as someone else. Krell reached for her. Don't touch it. Too late. Her fingers brushed the glass. And everything fractured. The sky blinked. Twice. Krell was suddenly alone. Elska was gone. The mirror gone. The planet, empty. No static. No ghosts. Just silence. Then he heard her voice. Not in his ears. In his bones. What if I never was? He turned, nothing. What if Frankenstein didn't build me from the dead, but from a lie? Reality twisted again. Now he was in a corridor. Steel walls. Cold lights. Screams behind glass. Promethea Labs. His past. His worst mission. He was 27 again, dragging a bleeding clone down the hallway as alarms blared and the atmosphere leaked out. The clone was begging him to kill her before she became what they made her to be. He remembered this. Except, this wasn't his memory. Krell spun, gasping. Get out of my head. But Elska was there now, her stitched form flickering between versions. Her face, soft, stitched, burning, whole, monstrous, human, all at once. As if the void was rifling through her concept, deciding which version to erase first. Do you love me? She asked, voice distorted. Yes, he shouted, without hesitation. Then remember me. Anchor me. Now. Krell stepped forward and grabbed her by the shoulders, grounding her, physically, psychically. His hands burned at the contact. Not pain. Heat from a collapsing timeline. You are Elska, he growled. You murdered Frankenstein. You are not his bride. You are your own myth. You are real because I remember you. The void screamed. The mirror shattered. And reality stitched itself back together with a terrible snap. They landed hard on the dirt. Breathing. Whole. Elska curled in on herself, smoking at the seams. Krell dropped beside her, panting. You with me? I don't know what's me anymore, she whispered. You are now, he said. Because we keep saying it. Because we choose to. The stitch wakes evolving. It doesn't just erase now. It rewrites us. She looked up, eyes glowing even in the daylight. If it rewrites me completely, Krell. He shook his head. No. Not happening. If it does, promise me something. He hesitated. If I become something else. If I forget you. If I become the tool they always wanted me to be. Elska. Promise me you'll kill me. Before I take your memories with me. He stared at her, long, hard. Finally, he nodded. I promise. She smiled softly. Liar. That night, under a sky with no stars, the planet began to vibrate. The crater split open, revealing a core chamber beneath the surface. Inside it, a monolith of bone and steel, pulsing with broken glyphs. A mass tomb of experiments, bodies not quite alive, not quite dead, twisted in the fetal curl of artificial wombs. All connected. All wired into one central brainstem pulsing in agony. At the base, carved in forgotten language. Origin_001, bride. Elska fell to her knees. I wasn't the only one, she whispered. I was the first. But not the only. Krell raised his weapon. Then what the hell is that? The air around the monolith rippled, and the void stepped through. No longer formless. No longer silence. The stitchwake had taken a host. It was Frankenstein's face, stitched across 1,000 bodies, towering, glitching, with mouths stitched shut, and one that wasn't. You should have stayed dead, it said, in his voice. Elska stood, wiping blood from her nose. I was never dead, she growled. I was waiting. The thing that wore Frankenstein's face stepped out of the monolith like a god dragging its own legend behind it. Stitched limbs twitched. Forgotten names screamed through speaker mouths that blinked in and out of reality. The air crackled not with electricity, but with deletion, history collapsing in real time. Elska gritted her teeth. You're not him. I am what remains, the stitchwake said, its voice 1,000 overlapping regrets. When you killed him, you freed his echo. You cracked the spine of myth, and now I'm the editor. You're a coward in a costume, she spat. A parasite feeding on recycled lies. And you, it hissed. You were never real. A story assembled by others. Frankenstein's obsession. A footnote. It raised its hand. Krell's rifle shattered in his grip, not from force, but from reversal. It simply unhappened. He gasped, falling to his knees, clutching his head as memories leaked from his mind like heat from a dying fire. She isn't yours, the stitchwake told him. And you never loved her. That moment was scripted, part of her programming. Let it go. He tried to speak, but he couldn't remember her name. Couldn't remember why he followed her. Or why he hurt. Elska moved. Faster than she ever had. Her body glitched, burned, unraveled, but her will surged like a collapsing star. You can erase data, she snarled, voice layered with electricity and rage, but I am grief made flesh. I am the rage of the things left behind. I am the scream no one archived. She reached the core. The heart of the monolith. A mass of raw memory thread, the ancient technology that stitched her together. Frankenstein had stolen it, but he never understood it. She did now. Elska, Krell whispered, his voice returning as she stepped into the beam. What are you doing? Finishing the story. She looked at him one last time, her face a kaleidoscope of who she'd been. The human girl. The stitched monster. The soldier. The lover. The myth. Remember me, just once more. Then she screamed. I choose my own stitch. And pulled the thread. Light erupted from the planet's core. The stitchwake shrieked, staggering backward, faces melting, voices unraveling. It wasn't being destroyed. It was being rewritten. Elska's scream echoed across time. Not pain, defiance. Reality buckled. The sky shattered. When Krell awoke, he was on the Lazarus Fong. Alone. Orbiting nothing. No planet. No stitchwake. Just one voice on a repeating loop, soft, like wind across silk. This is Elska. Not the bride. Not the weapon. Just, me. A single memory file blinked on the console. The only file left in the ship's log. Krell opened it. It was a recording, Elska standing in a black field of stars, looking into the camera. If you're seeing this, it means I made the final cut. I rewrote the ending. The stitchwake's gone, but so am I. You can't resurrect a story and expect it to obey. You have to let it end. She touched her temple, a stitched line now glowing silver. But I left this part. Because you remembered me once. And maybe that's enough. Goodbye, Krell. The feed cut. Just silence. And a single name, etched into the console, where the ship's name used to be. Elska. He sat there for a long time. A soldier with no war, a man with a hole in his chest he couldn't explain. No one else would remember her. No one else ever knew she existed. But he would. That was her last stitch. And the galaxy, quiet and whole again, held the shape of her absence.